For more on this, let's welcome in the president of Strellmark LLC, Hilary Fordwich. Hilary, welcome back to the show. The IMF warning there will be a major negative shock from Trump's tariffs. What effect does a report like this have on the stock market?
Well, Rick, pleasure to be back with you. And it's rather a self-fulfilling prophecy, of course, particularly for those that get jittery on such reports. But I think that one has to logically and intellectually look at the track record of anybody who ever makes any predictions. And historically, the IMF has always been within a couple of percentage points off, and they have not been actually that accurate in terms of predicting recessions. Also, if one was to look at one's own money and where to bet, let's bet on those that have been in the business world, those that have made millions in the business world, versus those that are really sort of, I would say, bureaucrats. And obviously their funding also goes to developed countries where that's where sort of some of their interest is. So I think it is somewhat of a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I think that they made this also before we heard about all the optimism that Caroline Levitt reported today, which is that there are about 18 trade deals actually on paper in the works. And we know that nearly 100 companies, Rick, have come to the table and want to negotiate.
Hilary, I'm so glad you brought that up, because let's say you're going to bet on a ball game. Are you going to follow the advice of a bookie who's wrong on every single matchup, who has a terrible track record? Well, as you point out, economic experts have a mixed track record when it comes to accurately predicting trends like inflation. So why should they be trusted this time? It sounds like you're saying don't worry about it, but clearly the economy right now is a little shaky. So where do we go from here?
Yes, it is shaky. And one of the best analogies I've heard, Rick, is the only people that get hurt on a roller coaster ride are the people that try to jump off in the middle. I think it's very important to stay calm. And I've quoted before, and I'll quote again, the Dutch trade minister, Reinhard Cleaver, and she has said, just stay calm. I think we have to see how this all pans out. And again, if there was nothing being negotiated, and if no one was making any moves, I would say, okay, we'll be a pessimist then. But no, Scott Bessent has actually said that he anticipates that there will be a trade deal even with China within 3 to 4 weeks. And as we know, President Trump has set himself a 90-day goal to have 90 trade deals done. And Rick, I would bet on somebody who's made millions and who's been a great negotiator and who wrote art of the deal versus let's just say economists who haven't been quite as successful.
Well, I understand that, and I have to say I agree with you on that, Hilary. But, you know, I heard somebody on a financial network earlier today saying maybe he should have just gotten the rest of his stuff ironed out, gotten the economy where he wanted it to be, maybe then start working on some of these tariff deals, taking them on one at a time, and not just putting the whole world on notice and throwing the market into turmoil. Could his timing have been better?
Yes, I do actually think, obviously, there's a lot of instability, and I'll just speak now certainly as a businesswoman in the business world. Uncertainty is never good for business because people need to plan. They need to plan investments. They need to plan manufacturing. And even all the great deals, and President Trump is totally right about the number of companies that are reshoring here into the US. I mean, just look at the car manufacturers like Honda and the others, and Nissan, those that are going to reshore and open manufacturing plants here. All very good news, but it doesn't happen overnight. It takes time, and businesses need to plan. So yes, you're totally right. Uncertainty is never good for business. I do think, though, there is a degree of shock and awe to this. And the other thing, Rick, is don't forget, President Trump doesn't have a very long runway. Those midterms now, the time is ticking down to the midterms, and he needs to make major deals quickly so that it gives the companies time to reshore and to invest and build manufacturing here, so we see some concrete results in terms of the economy in a big way before the midterms, or else he's going to lose part of the House, maybe part of the Senate, and he'll have less power.
Well, the president's runway might be short, but this nation's runway is very, very long. At least I hope it is. And so I see the president looking beyond his term. He's looking at the long-term future of this country, and he obviously has a plan. And I wonder if you agree that he's on the right track. If you think that his goal to reshape the global trade market, make it all fair, whether this actually will benefit America in the long term, and if people do have patience, then they're going to see results sooner rather than later.
Well, absolutely, I think it is. I mean, and I'll give you just the concrete example. I used to head global business development worldwide for KPMG based in Amsterdam. So I've lived in Holland for 3 years. Try to spot the American car. Try to spot the American car anywhere in Germany. I've traveled all over Europe on business. You just don't see American cars because of the 10% tariff over there versus our 2.5% here. Every member of your audience can look out of their window any given day and see a German car, any kind of European car. So I think that this is absolutely fair because the US has to stop being the world's piggy bank. Now, after the Second World War, the Marshall Plan, the US did help the rest of the world. And I think that there's a time and a place for everything. There was a time and a place for the Marshall Plan, but right now, Rick, yes, we need to have a global reset. That's what President Trump is doing so that we are looking at the long term to go back to being a manufacturing nation, a producing nation. And last but not least, this is also for our national security. I think if COVID taught us anything, having drugs that come from foreign countries, let alone a lot of parts for all of our military equipment, it just simply isn't safe. We need to be a self-sufficient nation and prosperity here for all Americans. I'll say that as a taxpayer.
Less reliant on the rest of the world. Hilary Fordwich, thanks so much for sharing your thoughts with us today. Great to see you.